This was a moment for Alexander Gardner to sell photographs. Him and his crew took this young man, dragged him up to this position, and made up a story about him.
Coming up from the American Battlefield Trust.
The blazing midsummer sun, tempered by some clouds above, must have been heavy in the air as Alexander Gardner and his crew arrived at Gettysburg and secured photos of the battlefield, and namely, becoming the only photographic team to secure photos of the human carnage on the Gettysburg battlefield. They spent the most time on one particular man, one soldier who had charged into battle full of life just 4 days earlier when Alexander Gardner and his crew came upon his form, laying down the hill a short distance away. He was lying right here, and you could see some of the distinctive rocks in the background. He didn't look like the other soldiers. He wasn't bloated. He looked like he could be your son or your brother. And they exposed 4 precious plates on him in different directions, really trying to bring home the sadness of this moment. At some point, they also discovered a perfect photographic location about 72 yards away from here. This location right here. Big boulders, there's a stone wall right near it, little round top in the background, but alas, there was no corpse. And in a flash of creative excitement, him and his crew took this young man onto a blanket and dragged him the 72 yards up to this position. This was a moment for Alexander Gardner to document this battle and to sell photographs as well. And we can actually step into the scene where Alexander Gardner and his crew actually put a soldier on a blanket and dragged him here to this particular location. Probably moved his head a little bit more toward the camera so you could actually see him. They placed a prop gun against the wall, and that same gun appears in numerous photos that they took here at Gettysburg. And they laid him out here and made up a story about him. This is a sharpshooter's last sleep, or home of a rebel sharpshooter. They arranged other items around him, a cartridge box pouch. You can see part of a haversack strap. You can see part of that blanket that they had carried him on. After they recorded the one shot with a big camera on a big 7x9 glass plate, which affords astounding resolution, they then took out their twin lens camera, a stereo camera with 2 lenses an eye width apart, allowing them to mount it onto a 3D card so you could see it in 3D. Between the 2 photographs they took, one he looks in one direction and he looks slightly into another direction later. They got a little lower to the ground. They moved the blanket forward a bit and they recorded this photo. Scene manipulation was common at that time. They regularly placed an artillery shell or a prop gun. And although other photographers did this with props regularly, they did not do this with a corpse. In fact, this is the only instance of the entire Civil War where we know that photographers actually moved a corpse for the purpose of getting a better photo, and it worked. They converted it into an engraving so that mass numbers of people could see it in things like Harper's Weekly. The photographers told a story. They told a story about how he was a sharpshooter. The gun is not a sharpshooter's gun. They told the story how he laid out his head to await his death after a terrible wound. And with the story that they attached to this particular photo, a sharpshooter's last sleep, a home of a rebel sharpshooter, it became one of the most popular photos of the Civil War. As to his identity, we just don't know. I mean, he's one of so many soldiers who fell here. The 1st Texas fought here on July 2nd, so did the 17th Georgia on July 2nd. We can only surmise who he was based on where he was found. But we just don't have the ability to identify people by face alone, at least yet. For us today, and probably for all time, he will remain a nameless corpse, standing out with the dubious distinction of being the most photographed close-up corpse of the entire Civil War. And this soldier not only didn't deserve this, he certainly couldn't have expected what was coming, that America would see his face. Stories would be made up about him. This was exactly the opposite of a good death in the 19th century. Photographers moved a body, and they're going to carry him up here, make up stories about him, place things in different locations around him, and then sell those photographs to a hungry public who had really never seen images like that before the previous year. In the end, looking at something like this, a dead young man among so many other dead, the manipulation of a scene, the terrible slaughter that went into the Civil War really tells us nothing more than in the final analysis, war is the most disgusting of all obscenities.
Get inspired at battlefields.org.